Now, I am no wowser, and I certainly don't like the government controlling people's lives. Anyone who has watched me regularly will know that I own greyhounds and horses, and I love a day at the races, and I love a punt. I'd never want the punt to be taken away from Australians. It is, done in the right circumstances, a great Australian activity. But it's a different story when it comes to the pokies. And while the New South Wales government is coming under attack from RSLs for trying to reform gambling laws, I think they need to be applauded. Dominic Perrottet wants to turn poker machines cashless. You'd have to use a digital card assigned to you in order to put money through the pokies. Now, this does two things. One, it means the amount of money individuals are gambling can be monitored, which makes it easier to counsel problem gamblers and potentially ban them. At present, people who work in pokie halls and pubs and clubs aren't able to intervene when they see people flushing their money down the toilet. And sometimes that is all that's going down the toilet. In a story done by the ABC in 2020, 3 people who worked in Western Sydney clubs said they had witnessed pokey addicts wet themselves in their chairs rather than give up their poker machine. They were then, of course, that's the workers that is, forced to clean up the whiz. One of these people, who went by the name of Rachel, said she on multiple occasions found used adult nappies in the toilets, again, so people didn't have to give up their poker machines. Rachel said, quote, "If someone who was just drinking pissed themselves, it would be different. They would be asked to leave. Because they are gambling, well, we're told to keep them happy, to do anything we can to make them stay." Now, you wouldn't generally think of this stuff, but this is the reality of gambling addiction, and it's going on every day in pubs and clubs across the country, while just metres away, people like you and me are unsuspectingly enjoying a meal or a pint of beer or a glass of red. Secondly, it would help stop the mass money laundering that seems to be going on through the pokies. Because it's essentially an untracked and untraceable form of spending, organised crime gangs have been increasingly washing dirty money through poker machines. They often do this by purchasing winning jackpot tickets from gambling addicts by offering them more than the jackpot is worth and then cashing in the jackpot themselves. Now, what's so awful about this, beyond the fact that it's allowing criminals who put drugs on the streets and kill people for fun to keep doing their business, it's that it turns struggling gambling addicts into the pawns of serious criminals. The New South Wales Crime Commission last year found that billions of dollars of dirty money was being washed through poker machines in that state alone. Only a fraction of this money is reported by pokie venues themselves. Victorian data from AUSTRAC, which is the federal financial crimes watchdog, shows that just 75 venues reported 400 suspicious customers between May 2021 and May 2022. The suspicious transactions that were reported, that is, represented only $10.5 million worth of money gambled. You can bet there's a hell of a lot more. If it's billions in New South Wales, it's obviously going to be billions in Victoria. In September, a Melbourne crime gang was busted buying $4.7 million worth of jackpots at a suburban venue and sometimes laundering as much as $50,000 in one sitting. The pubs and clubs make a hell of a lot of money out of the pokies, and that includes criminal money, billions of dollars worth of ill-gotten gains. And seemingly they don't want to give it up. And why would they? You only have to see the size of the clubs they have in New South Wales to know the obscene amount of money generated by pokies. Same goes for lavish upgrades to pubs. The latest newsletter from the RSL and Services Club Association included a note from Chief Executive Margot Smith, who warned a cashless card would have unintended consequences. What sort of unintended consequences? Maybe pokie venues losing revenue because criminals can't wash their money and gambling addicts can be identified for the help they need. Now, don't get me wrong. The idea of monitoring people's spending and telling them what they can and can't do does trouble me. But the social and societal ill caused by pokies and the crime enabled by pokies is too serious to ignore. The president of the Hawthorn RSL sub-branch in Melbourne has spoken out against Ms Smith's comments. She's meant to represent him, Eamon Hale said, "We are the RSL, one of the mainstays of our country that's been here for 106 years. We should be a trusted organisation, and unfortunately gaming in the way it is currently regulated isn't trusted." He went on, "It's a practice that preys on vulnerable people, and I don't think the RSL, an organisation that is supposed to help vulnerable people, should be reliant on a business practice that preys on the vulnerable. Poker machines are designed purely to rob people of their money. They are, by law, required to return about 87% of money gambled, but that, of course, does not mean that you are going to get the money back, and it means that the longer you play, the more you'll lose. It's the only form of gambling where the bookie is legally protected from losing. There is no way a pokey operator can lose money because they automatically cream, by law, 13 cents off every dollar gambled. There's no skill or rhyme or reason to any of it. It's mindless, computer-generated and random. And these machines are designed to make all the right noises and movements to trigger addiction. You can't do the form or make any informed decisions whatsoever. You're just throwing your money in the hope that you'll win something, in the full knowledge that the game is rigged against you. The pokies lobby is a big one for the New South Wales government to take on, but I hope they are not dissuaded. And on another matter, I told you last night that the federal government's decision to force Chinese visitors to take COVID tests was unscientific political opportunism. And just hours later, it was confirmed. Chief Medical Officer Paul Kelly wrote to Health Minister Mark Butler the day before he introduced the rule to say that there was no evidence, quote, that there is a sufficient public health rationale to impose any restriction or additional requirements on travellers from China. Professor Kelly wrote, quote, "I discussed the situation with state and territory chief health officers and public health officials from New Zealand via the Australian Health Protection Principal Committee on 30 December 2022, and there is strong consensus that implementation of any restrictions to travel from China at this time would be inconsistent with the current national approach to management of COVID-19 and disproportionate to the risk." And yet, the government did it anyway. As if you needed more proof that so much of what has been done to us during the pandemic has been about politics and not about public safety. I knew it, many of you knew it, and now it has been proven.